you're building a resume based off of that. Yeah, you'll look at, oh, they did this, they did. You can get as granular as you want, but undefeated against the FCS is undefeated against the FCS, so that's a top 5 seed.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. Welcome to the end of October. It's getting spooky in the FCS. Halloween is on board. We are themed with some Mercer tonight, nice and orange, a little bit of black. We are in the festive season of Halloween, and it's getting scary for people's playoff hopes, their chances of a seed, and just hopes and prayers that things will go past the third or fourth week of November. Welcome to the FCS Fans Nation podcast, the OG crew coming to you. Matthew Frazee, Kyler Neal, Jamie Williams. You know, it's tough to beat what you guys had last week, though. Big shout out to Andrew Markham coming on the pod, dropping that UIW and FCS knowledge. A man of service and a man of honor. So, Andrew, thanks for taking my place. You can take it anytime you want. You did a phenomenal job, and appreciate all those live viewers that were coming through. Jamie, great job hosting. Kyler, hilarious as always. So, thank you so much to our FCS Gold members, 99 cents a month. We're going to start shameless plugging this thing like crazy the next 4 weeks because the bracket challenge is almost here. If you want to win a $50 Visa gift card, straight cash, homie. If you want 99 cents just for December, just for January, get you an opportunity, $2 to try to win 50. We'd love to have you. Make sure you hit subscribe or like on YouTube. Those numbers keep pumping up, and we just appreciate everyone who's been following the podcast. Enough of the plugs. We had a semi-boring but really exciting end of an FCS football weekend. Mr. Jamie Williams, before we get into the top 6, which seems to be themed around the committee's upcoming seedings, any thoughts on this last week before we get rolling?
Yeah, it wasn't quite as boring as it seemed. I mean, if you look around, you can find games. Mercer and Western Carolina was phenomenal. So, don't forget about that one. That was kind of a pseudo game of the week. Incarnate Word, Southeast Louisiana was tight, good down to the wire. Quite a few good games. There was a couple good games in the CAA, but nobody saw them because 98% of the people don't have flow, and I probably underestimated by saying 98%. So, yeah, while it seems boring, because if you go through the top 25, there's not that many losses, just I think 3 or 4. So I don't expect a whole lot of movement in the polls tomorrow, but yeah, it was a weekend. Definitely one game kind of stole the show there towards the end, and it wasn't Eastern gagging away 10 points. It was the other game that was late.
It undoubtedly was. If you're watching on YouTube, the Kyler head nod says it all. Cannot wait for basketball. And despite Mr. Steve Wagner here, he said, no question, just really boring all week when your team is on a bye. Sorry that your team was on the bye, Steve. They'll be back next week. And we are getting ready to talk about the top 6 topics of the stuff that was not so boring.
What are FCS fans talking and posting about nonstop? It's time for the top 6 topics of the week.
All right, the top 6 topics, and getting right into it, guys. Jamie, you mentioned a game that kind of made things go crazy for folks, and here we go. Dustin starts us off with saying, is SDSU, the Jackrabbits, most troubled by offensive execution issues or poor play calling? This gives us an opportunity to talk about a Jackrabbits offense that has been a little bit off per its own fans, but also let's discuss that SDSU and USD game as a whole, because holy crap, it seemed like neither team wanted to win it and somebody had to. So, Kyler, right off the bat, what do you think about that game as a whole and South Dakota State? Offensive issues? What do we got?
I mean, again, it was a game just like last week. I mean, it was kind of a more boring game, but also really intense because of the rivalry against 2 really good teams, which made it exciting, right? Even though there wasn't the fireworks of that offensive play style that I love, it was an exciting game because there's a lot of stuff on the line. The stakes were high. right? You have South Dakota coming in, kind of looking up to Big Brother and seeing what they could do. And it's a giant rivalry game for them. It's their Super Bowl. Then you have South Dakota State coming off a loss to arguably, the top team in the nation right now. And it was a close loss at that. Coming in here and have something to prove, right? Because again, this is two really tough back-to-back games, and it was fun to see. I mean, it was a slobber knocker. It was a slugfest. South Dakota kind of screwed themselves a couple times where they probably were the better team overall, at least in this game. Maybe not the season, but at least in this game. And then as for like South Dakota State, yeah, their offense is struggling. This isn't the same offense that we saw, last year. Their offense, especially on the passing game, it's really tough to find a wide receiver down the field. I don't know, the tight ends aren't what they were, right? When you lose Tucker Kraft and you lose all these amazing NFL tight ends that they've had, Dallas Goedert. I mean, yeah, they don't have an NFL talented tight end probably on the roster right now, and it's kind of showing. But the offense is struggling. The good news about South Dakota State is that defense is so lights out that it's going to put them in every single game. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to score probably 20 points to beat them, and I don't think anyone's scored really 20 points so far. I mean, that's the thing. So even if their offense is, I don't even want to say it's atrocious. What is it, ranked top 25 in the league right now? So it's worse than it was last year, but it's still up there. And they've ran all over a few other teams. But against these elite other defenses, they got to learn how to be a little more dynamic. They got to learn how to throw the ball, especially down the field, not just these little short 2-3 yard types of plays, because it's going to kind of bite you in the ass in the semifinals if you have to go against Montana State and North Dakota State, maybe South Dakota again, who, probably was a slightly better team, or maybe not even the slightly better team. Maybe South Dakota State was a better team, but South Dakota had a chance to win, and kind of their own screw-ups really stopped them from winning. So, I mean, man, it was a fun game, though. It's fun to see these back-to-back high-caliber, top 5, games week after week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think this should be downplayed in terms of who the opponent was the last 2 weeks for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the concern was when I went on Jackrabbit Illustrated and I said, you guys have the weirdest offense of all time. You're like last in time of possession, yet you just score 1 billion points. And I even said it during the SDSU game. I'm like, I bet SDSU gets some giant big pop-off run or pop-off pass, because that's how their offense has just scored. Just these giant 50, 60-yard runs. And, of course, they had that moment. Now, their scores really were more methodical for the touchdowns that they had, not discounting the overtime game. But there's the mixture of the SDSU fans and where it's clear, Kyler, you're so right. This is not the same offense as last year. It's still really good, but we have to have some expectations of who we're replacing. However, the last 2 weeks where I think people are really going to start hammering SDSU, I think is totally unfair, because let's look at total defense in the FCS. I'm going to mention the teams above South Dakota and South Dakota State that nobody's going to take serious in terms of a playoff contender, or they're just not going to participate in the playoffs. You ready? Okay. Dayton, Butler, Alabama State, Morgan State, St. Francis, Wagner, Nichols, Lehigh, Southern, NC Central, and there you go. So above North Dakota State for defense is SEMO, Nichols, I guess, South Dakota State, Mercer, Montana State. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now look at South Dakota, who's number 9 overall in the FCS. Who's better than defensively? South Dakota State at 7, Mercer at 6, Montana State at 4. That's it. So the last 2 weeks, hopefully that emphasizes the point. They played the top 5 of who's actually going to be in the playoff mix-up in the entire league 2 weeks in a row. One of them in the Fargo Dome, which is worth 6 points, what most people saying is a death sentence. And then their rival at home. So when South Dakota State puts up 70 points against Murray State, which is a high school team next week, and probably goes up and beats UND pretty well, I don't think people will freak out as much. Jamie, what do you think, man? Some cause for concern here, even though it's different?
A little bit, but like Kyle said, the defense is going to keep them in games. That offense just there's something off about it, and I do know what it is. It's a different offense because, like Kyle said, look at all that they lost to the NFL. You can't just next man up. I get it, but the reason the next man is the next man is because he's not as good as the man. So next man up this year, they're still good, but they're not that level. And I think South Dakota State fans have kind of gotten that. I don't know, the same thought process the NDSU fans had in the late teens there, where it's like, it doesn't matter. The next guy, we're still that much better than you. And they're still that much better than just about everybody else. And where this game differs is, to me, South Dakota is about as a team where South Dakota State was between 2017, 2019, where they're really good, lots of good expectation, but they just can't close that big game. And I think that's what happened. Just think about Bowman had to go to the sideline because he had tweaked his ankles. They brought in 13. I don't even know if he's a quarterback. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And he just bobbled the snap and lost him 6 yards, makes the field goal that much more difficult. If Bauman's there to even just hand the ball off to Tice or whatever they want to do, get a couple yards, even 0, that kick might go through. And then we're talking about a different outcome. And just in overtime, they didn't execute a couple of plays. And South Dakota State just kept getting just 1 yard enough, one more yard enough. And then Amar Johnson busted it in. And Amar Johnson didn't have a great game. 10 carries for 17. But guess what? 2 of those 10 carries weren't for touchdowns. Because when the chips were down, they made a play when they needed to make it. And that's the difference in the game. I don't see a big chasm between these two teams that I thought there was. As I had said, there was 3 teams in Tier 1 and South Dakota's in Tier by itself. I think South Dakota proved they did belong in the top tier.
Yeah, Kyler, if you want to jump back in on that, I don't want to just move away from this because of South Dakota. We talk about South Dakota State all the time, and we've just at this point been like, well, South Dakota's going to have to show us, blah, 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 blah. So let's give them a stage. What did you think about the Coyotes? What do you think about them moving forward? A lot of people seem to be impressed.
I mean, I've been really impressed by their defense pretty much all year. I mean, their defense has been stout. This is the most points scored on South Dakota, I believe, something like that, outside of who they play, Wisconsin. But they held Wisconsin to 27 points, 28 points?
Yeah.
So, yep. I mean, that is a fantastic defense. And the offense from South Dakota, I mean, it's looked good in games. It also maybe looks like where last year, it seems like their offense was kind of pushing them through games. Their offense was really fantastic. It was lighting up the scoreboard. This is a really balanced South Dakota team. I mean, if you're not South Dakota State, if you're not NDSU, if you're not Montana State, you probably don't want to play this team right now. This is a team that has continued to build over the last few years to where they may be that next power. I mean, I'm not sure, right? Again, we'll have to see what they do against North Dakota State, which I don't think is going to look as close. But I mean, if you're South Dakota, you probably want this game again, and you're not afraid to play South Dakota State again. I mean, these are those close games where you're like, give me South Dakota State in the semifinals again. I want another shot at them. This is kind of how I felt when Eastern played NDSU when we lost in overtime in the Dome in 2016. Now, give me that NDSU team again. I bet you we'd beat you, because it just seemed like it. This South Dakota team, they're probably feeling that type of confidence. They're a phenomenal team. They're really good, and I'm excited to see what they can do. I want to see what they can do in the playoffs now. I mean, this is one of those things where I judge teams based off of not what you do in the regular season, but what you do in the playoffs, because that's what really, separates the big boys from everyone else. And this is the time for South Dakota to really kind of show everyone who they are. Get to the semis, right? Get to the semis. Let's put a show on, and we'll see what happens.
And before they even get there, they've got North Dakota State coming to them last game of the season.
Yeah.
That's where they could really make a statement and really throw things out of whack. So that's going to be an interesting game. I think they can hang. I really do.
Drop 5 seeds.
Yeah, honestly, that gives them the opportunity to sit at home probably till the semis or, quarters maybe at worst. If they win that game, they got a shot. But if they lose it, they're probably just in the pack. So,
if they win the game, they're at home till probably the semis.
Oh, yeah.
Then they're on the road. But, yeah, if they lose, they might be traveling in the quarters. I don't know.
I wonder if we'll get a chance to talk about seeding at all in this episode. I think we might. There's a good chance. Boy, I got to tell you, though, that I wanted that rematch too, NDSU EW in 2016, Kyler. But then, some team pulled a lucky streak and ended up winning the Natty that year.
Sucks. They were so bad, they're not even in the FCS anymore.
Seems like they kicked them out. Yeah, they moved them out. It's crazy.
Bums.
Wow. No reaction.
Are they bowl eligible or something?
No, probably not.
No.
Speaking of bowl eligible, that could be Delaware, the hat that I'm rocking right now tonight. Who is the best team in the CAA? This is from Seth and Derek, and I'll read everything from them. Derek says, is Stony Brook legit? Is Villanova shaky? What's going on over there behind the great wall of Flow Sports? I feel this could get asked every week, and the answer could change every week. Who is the best team in the CAA? Says Seth. Okay, I'm pulling up the standings on YouTube for you, Jamie. Have at it. The collaboration of crap, or however it said. What's up with the CAA?
Oh, I can't tell you how much it's going to pay me to say this. The best team in CAA is Richmond, and I'm not sure it's even close. You got to give Rhode Island a lot of credit for what they've done. They're undefeated against the FCS, and I think they're a solid playoff team. But if you just look at the games, after a little bit of a shaky 0-2 start, Richmond is the best team in the CAA. They are absolutely rolling. They put up 41 in the first half yesterday and just pedaled down. As far as the question about Stony Brook, they're legit as far as a back end of the rankings, decent CAA team. I don't think they would win a playoff game, but Tyler Knoop has played well the last few weeks to really put them in contention. I wouldn't be surprised to see them enter some ballots at 6-2. I think they're solid. They got hammered by Villanova, but then they've hammered Towson on the road, and then they just really dominated William & Mary at home. They picked off William & Mary 4 times defensively. So I think they've played good football to where Stony Brook is really putting themselves in that conversation. Villanova, I don't know. They're probably going to make the playoffs because they're going to cruise through the rest, and their numbers are going to look pretty good. But gosh, they should have had a couple more losses, and they're going to be a team that even if they get a top 8 seed or even a top 6 seed, they're losing their first game. They just don't have it. I don't like the way Connor Watkins is playing. He threw 2 touchdowns yesterday, but I think he threw for 150 yards or something like that. William & Mary's kind of fallen off. They've got to – I'm not going to say they've got to win out to make the playoffs, but that team is not good on the road. That's just not their thing. They're 4-0 at home, 1-3 on the road. But other than that, 1, 2, 3, they've got 4 teams that could probably say they've got a shot at the playoffs.
I was just going to say, Jamie, I was like, dude, you look at this on the screen on YouTube and you know nothing. Yeah, you know nothing about FCS football or strength or whatever. This is like, just go down the line, starting at Rhode Island, 7-1, 6-2, 7-1, 6-2, 6-2, 5-3, 5-3, not out of contention. And then you got 4 teams in a row that are 4-4.
That's exactly what you get from the CAA, but look at who they played. It's a regression. When you look at the bottom of the CAA, Elon's terrible this year. But right, look at that from Campbell on down. They're just it's so lean.
What if 5 teams get to 8 wins though? What if 5 teams get to 8 wins?
They're probably all getting in the playoffs, and so how many 4 of them will lose their first game?
Wow. So is the CAA capable of being, or are they capable of just ripping away playoff spots because of this massive conference and this massive overlay?
I think what you have is a Big Sky that's got a very top-heavy look to it with a lot of teams that aren't going to contend that you think. And people want to talk about the Valley. That's another top-heavy. That the Valley has really not shown outside of their top few teams plus Missouri State that they're really going to do anything. North Dakota's 0-3 on the road. We're not surprised. They're 5-0 at home. We're not surprised. But you can't lose to Youngstown. So if you just start thinking about that, spots are going to open up, and 8-win CAA teams that have played the just not good schedules are going to get in because of that. I'm not going to say it's a conglomeration of crap, but it's as top heavy as the others, and that's what we're going to see.
It sure looks good. And Kyler, you haven't said it is good for all season. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's just the records look good. So what is this? What's the CAA? Who's the best? Who's legit?
There is no best. If you're looking at, I disagree with even like Richmond. You can't lose to a 1-4 in the SoCon Wofford and be some powerhouse. And now I agree with like what Jamie, they're probably going to get quite a bit of teams, and most of them are going to lose in the first round. probably Villanova is still arguably the best and has the most talent and can make the deepest run. But I mean, you're looking at Rhode Island. They haven't lost to an FCS team, but they also struggled against Long Island. So every single one of these teams in here has looked horrible in games versus really bad programs where they won just to boost up their record. I mean,
that's the case for everybody but like 4 teams. If you think about it, look at all the way through. Everybody else has a question. Everybody with even one loss has a questionable loss.
Yeah, the difference is the CA, every single game is weak. So it's like you're playing close to the shitty teams and you're playing close to the other shitty teams. So everyone's a shitty team. I mean, I think it sucks having this many teams. Because again, Monmouth, look, they're 4-4. They look like they were horrible against Eastern. Eastern is one of the worst teams in the country. You have Rhode Island struggled against Long Island. That is not a good team. You had Richmond lose to Wofford, who is a horrible team, right? So it's just unfortunate because they are going to steal some bids from probably some deserving teams in the UAC, probably some deserving teams in even the Southland. I think the Southland is a little bit stronger than the CA right now, but the CA is going to have multiple more wins. Their teams, the top teams are going to have 2 more wins than some of the Southland teams. But if you put most of these in the Southland, I think Incarnate Word would be the top team. They'd beat everyone here. I think Southeastern Louisiana would probably be number 3. And unfortunately, Southeastern Louisiana is probably going to sit at home and they're going to have 5 of these CA teams in the playoffs. It sucks to see because, again, it's week out of conference schedules. Then they have such unbalanced schedules to where it's going to inflate everyone's record. I think this should be illegal. I don't even like the Missouri Valley and the Big Sky having this many teams, but the CA just completely outdid it. They went, we're going to cheat the system really hardcore. We're going to make sure all the top teams every few years is just going to balance itself out to where they're going to play mostly crappy teams. They're going to inflate their records quite a bit. And, you're going to see a SoCon team sit at home that probably deserves to be in the playoffs. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting to see, but it's not a good conference. I have like 5 CA teams ranked, unfortunately, just because they've lost to 1 team or 0 team. But I mean, if you put them in like a power ranking, because a power ranking is a little different than an actual ranking, I don't know if I'd have 5 teams in the top 30. So, I mean, that's kind of the difference. And the power ranking is, who do you think is actually going to beat the other team? In my opinion, it's a little different. So I don't know. I hate it. I think it sucks. I think it sucks you're not on ESPN Plus as well. Just leave the FCS, you bastards.
Well, if you have Flow Sports money, you can afford those teams. You can bring them in.
$14.99 is way too much money for me.
Keep her going. Way more expensive than FCS Gold. Shout out 99 cents a month. All right, guys. If UC Davis, here we go. Thank you, Liam. Thank you for asking this question because nobody is talking about UC Davis except for the GOAT. Sam Herder's tweeting them out, other tweeting them out. But who's having discussion? Probably Zach and Sam. Beyond that, like literally, is everyone they're getting the South Dakota treatment? We're waiting for them to lose to Montana State or lose to the next team. Liam asks, if UC Davis wins out, will they be the 2 seed? So that's a direct question. Let's get that answered. But also, Kyler, Big Sky extraordinaire, tell me about UC Davis. Do we have expectation here? Who are the Aggies?
The Aggies are a team that has pretty big lines, some talent, and probably a little overranked in the grand scheme of things because I think the Big Sky sucks. So don't worry, it's not just the CA, Jamie, that I'm throwing fists at. I think the Big Sky sucks this year too.
I don't care. Talk all you want about the CAA.
So it's one of those things where UC Davis is going to be tough, but they are multiple steps below, I think, a Montana State in the Dakotas. But if they went out, yeah, they'd have a win over Montana. They'd have a win over Montana State. They'd have a win over Idaho, a very injured, banged up Idaho where they still barely got through. They would probably get the 2 seed. Their only loss would be to Cal. I mean, and they would get a ranked team, or they'd get 3 ranked teams, and 2 of them would be in the top 5 at the time they played. So that probably would give them a 2 seed, depending on what happens in North Dakota State. If North Dakota State wins out, vice versa. But other than that, I mean, I don't think they're going to win out. So it's fine. I think Montana State is going to roll through them, and I don't know. They're a decent team that probably is a quarterfinal ceiling type of team, but that's about it. If I was Idaho, or if I was UC Davis, I wouldn't want to play Idaho again when Idaho's healthy. They played against Idaho when they had like their third string quarterback. Right now, Idaho finally has their first string. That's a big difference. So I think UC Davis loses 2 more games, but if they win out, sure, yeah, they probably deserve the 2 seed.
Yeah, because you wouldn't think any different of UC Davis being if UC Davis would have an FBS loss, but let's say Montana State had lost their FBS game. I think people still right now with Montana State would be thinking they could be a top 2 seed if they had lost that FBS game, right? So UC Davis, yes, 2 seed if they went out. Here's the thing: the schedule's on YouTube. Sac State's not a good team. I'm sure Sac State's 2023. Boy, I'm off on that one. They lost to Cal, the FBS team, but like, look at these scores. You know, Texas A&M Commerce, like 38-22. They beat Southern Utah 24-21. Idaho is barely a win, but it's a good win. You know, Portland State 27-25. Is that what it shows?
They should have lost that game.
Eastern Washington, they only won by 10, and Eastern, as you said, not a good team.
Sucks.
This is the difference with all that mumble jumble I just said. South Dakota, who we were kind of curious about, was destroying their FCS opponents. Yeah, holding Wisconsin to 27 points. They were doing eye test, big power things. UC Davis looks like a team, like in your fantasy football team or your fantasy football league, right? You got that guy. He's 5-1, but his points for his team are like 500 and his points against are like 350. And you're like, how on earth is this? He gets the team. He gets the lucky team every week. That's how I feel about UC Davis. I think they're a little bit of a fraud. And I don't see them, winning that game when they go play the Montanas. Jamie, we right, we wrong? You got more faith in the Aggies?
No. I mean, I said a few weeks ago, I think they'd struggle down the stretch, and I even picked them to lose to Sac State, and I still think it's going to happen. I'll call it now. I think they would go on a 3-game lose streak to end. They lose to both Montanas. However, to answer the question, if they win out, they're the 2 seed because they're unbeaten against the FCS. But you just highlighted it all, Matt. Southern Utah, if Southern Utah had kicker, lose that game. Portland State, they score a touchdown with the goal line extended call that whatever the call on the field was going to stand, and they called it touchdown on the field. That was way close. Portland State dominated that game. Like I said, you can't just beat Commerce by 14, or you definitely can't give them 22. I mean, Utah Tech, they did with this Idaho by 2. They hammered Cal Poly. They'll win easily against Northern Colorado, and then I don't see them winning again. They'll probably beat Sac State, but I'm going to pick Sac State in that game. I still think there's – yeah, exactly. It's 13 miles apart or whatever it is, 8 or 13, one of the two.
Yeah.
But Lane Larson is a quiet contender for the Walton Payton Award. The dude does everything. Hastings is playing great. So they'll be in every game, just like you see, but they're not going to blow anybody out.
Nah. Their lines are big, but I don't know. There's just something about them that I'm just not impressed.
I even picked the score for them to lose to Sac State. Now, I read the score from 2023 at the beginning of that segment, but, why don't we just edit it?
Got him.
Got him. Away you go. Okay, guys, our fans did really good here. Like, they just took the assignment of a week that did not have a lot of action, and I think they're excited about the committee rankings coming out on October 30th. I think it's 2:30. I think it's Eastern. That's coming out where you're going to be able to see the playoff committee decide right now who would be the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 3 seed. I assume they'll go through 16 seeds, or in the past, I think they've done like the top 10.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Guess we'll see. But Garrett here says, how would SEMO and Tarleton winning out factor into seeding? Okay, Jamie, you've really hit SEMO. And I'm going to be completely honest. Every time I bring up a question like, how about the teams? And you're like, Matt, SEMO. I could do a compilation. You'd be like, people forget about SEMO. Let's break down Tarleton and SEMO, and if these teams run the table, what it impacts within the seeding and what you could see moving forward. Tell me about them.
Well, I definitely think SEMO wins out. I mean, look at what they've got left. Lindenwood at Lindenwood. So, I mean, that's pretty close together. They're St. Charles and Cape Girardeau. I don't think are super far apart. I mean, they're both in Missouri, so whatever. And then they play at home against Western Illinois. And then they play at Tennessee State, which is a sneaky good team, Tennessee State. But if SEMO runs the table, they're going to be a top 5 seed, probably 5, just because they're not going to have the schedule. I think their current schedule right now, where are they? Where's SEMO? They're way down my list. 69 right now.
Nice.
Tarleton, they're 47 in strength of schedule. If they went out, they're going to be a top 3 seed because both of these teams, their only loss is their FBS game. Now, they've both kind of played with fire. SEMO did this past week, and only a 6-point win over Gardner-Webb, 13 over Charleston Southern. But, before that, they were doing what they needed to do. Unfortunately, they're going to have only one ranked win, which is going to be Southern Illinois, who's really fallen off. They should have beaten New Mexico State. They really should have. They got too arrogant and went fourth down on their own 30. That's turned into the game-winning touchdown. And what's aged well is that North Alabama win, who stepped up and played a lot better. Better than I expected the North Alabama win. It's still not a great win, but it works for them. When you flip over
do you
to
think
Tarleton,
they could have another ranked window with Tennessee State? I mean, they're on the cusp, right?
Very Tennessee State is 25 right now.
Oh, yeah.
So that's looking like it could be a ranked win, which would be a huge, huge help. Tarleton, on the other hand, is probably going to have an opportunity for 2 ranked wins left because they end the season versus Abilene and versus Central Arkansas. They get both teams in Stephenville, which is going to be great for them. Again, they got hammered by Baylor, but they snuck by McNeese. They beat North Alabama by 2 touchdowns. They beat Southeast Louisiana by 3 in a very good and tight game. We can say they beat Southern Utah by 1. But hey, a win's a win. Again, if Southern Utah had kickers, they would have another win there, but they don't. But at the end of the day, you're winning the games. So when we talk about UC Davis, we talk about Tarleton with these tighter wins, you're still winning the games, and you're building a resume based off of that. Yeah, you'll look at, they did this, they did. You can get as granular as you want, but undefeated against the FCS is undefeated against the FCS, so that's a top 5 seed.
Yeah. The beauty of them, because they both have a realistic chance of winning out. I am really excited about that Tarleton Central Arkansas game. I think SEMO has a much better chance to win out than Tarleton. I think that's a little tougher at the end. Mm-hmm. But if they both win out, I mean, the beauty of this is you're still going to have multiple teams from the CA, Big Sky, Missouri Valley, SoCon that are going to beat each other up at the very end, right? Or potentially, right? So you're going to have maybe a UC Davis that plays himself out of a top seed. You're going to have a South Dakota that potentially plays himself out of a top 5 seed, right? And then it opens the range for these. And if you're Tarleton and you go through this schedule and you're undefeated against the FCS, I agree with Jamie. You probably do deserve a top 5 seed. If you're SEMO, that defense has been lights out. I think you probably do deserve a top 5 or 6 seed because you're going to have more wins than it's okay. Let me, I guess, backtrack this. How I was kind of view it as strength of schedule is really important when they have like maybe 1 win difference. There's a chance that they're going to have 2 to 3 win difference than some of the teams who would typically, get seated above them, like South Dakota. That Portland State game, that's going to hurt them. That wasn't played. Then they had a D2 team, right? Right? Yep. Maybe they didn't. Yep. Okay, they played a D2 team as well. So now you're looking at it.
Non-D1, however you call it. Yeah.
Non-D1, yeah, whatever they were. So now you're looking at it, and even if South Dakota, which we all think is probably the top 4 team right now, and let's say they go toe-to-toe with North Dakota State to where it was a close game against the number 1 team, and you're probably like, man, South Dakota is still probably the 4th best team in the country. They just played 2 of the best 3. All of a sudden you go, but SEMO and Tarleton has 4 or 3 more Division I wins than South Dakota. It's not that close. If it was a 1-game difference, I'd probably go, all right, you really got to look at strength of schedule. If it's a 1-game difference. But if it's 3 FCS game difference, it's hard to not give it to one of these teams. Because at the end of the day, schedule better. Don't play that sub D2. Make fun of Portland State for canceling the game. And, if they win out, man, give them each at least top 5, top 6, depending on what happens the rest of the league. Now, if South Dakota beats North Dakota State, they probably solidified themselves as a top 5, which would probably push out a SEMO to maybe that 6. But it'll be fun to see.
I have so many things to say here, but I'm just going to plug the Taco Bet. The Taco Bet, we're going to basically give some predictions for what we think the committee is going to do. in terms of the seeding. That was incredibly well answered by both of you two, by the way. The FCS is lucky to have your knowledge, and I will keep all my thoughts inside. Yoshi, the man, has a great question here for us, guys. I really, really like this question because you can literally go anywhere with it. Which teams benefits the most from winning out the rest of the season? Yoshi also asks any predictions in different scenarios for top 8 seeds. Stay tuned for the taco bet here, Yoshi. Which teams benefit the most from winning out the rest of the season? Man, you could go a team that's at 500 right now. You could go a team that is, I don't know, like we got some swag. We got some Miak action of people who could still get up in there into those title games. Jamie, you look excited. Who do you have?
I really do like this question because of exactly what you said. And honestly, who benefits the most? Anybody who right now has 3 or 4 losses, to be honest. I mean, if you let's take one team. I mean, against the FCS, like I'll go quick. The team I like, Southern Utah. They win the rest of their games. They're 8-4. They put themselves into the discussion. Right now, they're not in the discussion. SEMO, they win the rest of the games. You're cooking with gas. Illinois State is an interesting one. I don't know what their schedule is, but they're 5-3, and I know one of them's at FBS. That might be the most intriguing. If Illinois State wins out, and let's see, I'll see if I can quickly find their schedule. They're going to play themselves right back into the playoffs because right now I think they're hard, solid bubble team. Youngstown State, Northern Iowa, Indiana State should theoretically be wins and then host North Dakota.
Which should
That's
be
a team that can play themselves potentially not just into the playoffs, but into the top 16, probably the back part of it. So let's go with Illinois State. Let's go with Illinois State Redbirds.
I'm going to go with the team that's been up against it so much with the injuries and everything else and started so hot that we loved, which is just Idaho. Right now, ranked number 11. We'll see what happens with the rankings tomorrow. But their last 3 games, it's nothing special. At Portland State, Weber State they host, and then it's the rivalry against Idaho State. But those 3 wins will be critical, and then you're going to line them up when they played 2 FBS opponents and have an FBS win over Wyoming. We all saw what happened close to Oregon. Once that quarterback's back, what sort of seeding will that do for Idaho? I think they do win those games, but I think that's a big benefit for them to be back in the discussion to host some games as you push those quarterfinals. Kyler, who do you think?
Man, I think it's actually going to be, of course, I like Jamie's answer because that's the real thing. It's pretty much every team that at least has 3 wins. But I'm actually just going to say Montana. It probably means more to them. For one, they have UC Davis coming up. They have Montana State coming up. That'd be 2 top 5 wins. And the reason why it would be important for Montana is, listen, I mean, this is a team where they by far have the toughest environment to play at, right? Grizz in the playoffs. I mean, Matt, you saw it last year. Yeah. It is not an easy place to play, especially when the weather starts getting crazy, when the fans get crazy in the playoffs. And if you're looking at Montana, it'd be the same thing as last year. People were kind of doubting you because you looked a little shaky. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the season, you're just beating every single team. You're looking good, and it builds momentum into the playoffs. If they beat UC Davis and they beat Montana State, that's 2 top 5 wins. And then all of a sudden, now you're looking at, okay, maybe are they the 6 seed, the 5 seed, depending on what happens around the rest of the country. I get they lost to Weber State in overtime, and they lost to North Dakota really early in the year. The committee in the past has also said it kind of matters how you're playing at the end of the year too, right? And the committee could value it a different way. The committee can also see some dollar signs behind it, let's be honest. And if you're Montana, playing at home is the biggest home field advantage in the FCS, especially in December. And you could get a home game in potentially the quarters rather than traveling to a South Dakota State, a North Dakota State, or something else in the quarters where good luck, right? So I think for Montana, it's really important to win out because also if you lose out, you could be on the outside looking in on the playoffs. I mean, because you don't have any good wins. And if you lose UC Davis and Montana State, what's your best win? You lost to North Dakota, you lost to Weber, you lost to UC Davis, and then you lose to Montana State. They don't really have a good resume. Western Carolina, that could be your best win. That's not looking the best. Maybe Northern Arizona. So if they win out, man, that's huge for the Grizz.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I like that Grizz pick. I'll throw two more. They're coming up here in the taco bet. I'll throw two more in here. How about Rhode Island? Rhode Island's going to play four more opponents. They're currently 7-1. If you want to be in that discussion for what we were talking about, that 5, 6, 7 seed, they absolutely need to win. And one of those last four games, Albany, Monmouth, Bryant, they should win all those. Delaware. And of course, we've heard Jamie talk about how will the committee view Delaware as they're going up to the FBS. They would travel to Delaware. That might be their showcase win because they literally have none of it right now. And then we can't forget about Mercer. They're our team here on the end. Talk about a brutal schedule at the end to where they could kind of, I would say, recover from a bad loss to Samford. East Tennessee State, who looks really good right now and looked good against North Dakota State's coming next week. And they will play Furman there at the end. Oh, okay. They play Alabama. Of course, winning would help.
That'd be huge.
If they beat the Crimson Tide. But seriously, if they finish against the FCS with one loss right now, they low-key have 3 top 25 wins that were ranked at the time.
Can I do a follow-up with your Rhode Island pick?
You'd probably say the same thing I did.
Yeah, because it was funny. Jamie and I literally just said, if you're undefeated versus the FCS, you probably deserve a top 5 seed this year. And now let's say, there's a Montana State, there's a North Dakota State, there's a Rhode Island, there's a SEMO, it's going to get interesting. I mean, that's kind of where my head was at. I was like,
I have to cut you guys off because of the taco bet, but for a little preview, Rhode Island strength of schedule, 47th. Tarleton, who you talked about, 42nd. So,
well, here's the thing about Rhode Island, and it's going to go back to the point Kyler made about the CAA and the ranking CAA teams that you don't really feel like should be ranked. Rhode Island has a ranked win last week against New Hampshire. Bad job by the voters to get New Hampshire ranked. They were playing okay football. Good job, Rhode Island. You got a ranked win. Nobody feels like New Hampshire is anywhere near that, but that's what the resume says. But they don't have a chance for another ranked win, depending on how people think about Delaware.
Man,
right.
I cannot wait for the mock playoff special. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. I don't care how much. Now I'm going to plug the crap out of it the next couple of weeks. That is where we will pretend to be the committee. It will be a live episode. It'll happen the week before the selection show. And you guys will learn. If you haven't learned a lot already, you're going to learn a ton from that episode going into the selection show. Last topic, though, on the top 6 topics of the week. Here you go, Mr. Jamie Williams. It is your time to shine. Chase Beckvar says, don't know much about the other players in the running, but did David Walker solidify himself as a Buck Buchanan finalist with last night? 10 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, and broke UCA career TFL record in under 3 seasons. We have been talking Walter Payton like crazy. We have not talked Buck Buchanan whatsoever. Jamie, you're a Stats Top 25 voter. You're one of the most intelligent humans on these topics. Buck Buchanan, where are you looking right now?
Well, to me, it's a 2-man race to me right now. And for me, the reason that is I don't look too hard at total tackles. Total tackles honestly doesn't impress me. I get it. Your linebacker's going to have a ton of tackles. They're going to have a lot of tackles. What impresses me? Interceptions, but mostly tackles for loss and sacks. There's 2 guys way up there on both of those last 2. David Walker, we've been talking about him all year. People have talked about all year. The other guy that I'm going to highlight is somebody that was awesome as a freshman, tailed off the last few seasons, but having a really quiet, good year because he's on Flow Sports. Josiah Silver of New Hampshire. He's a senior now, and he has 15 tackles for loss, and he leads the FCS with 9.5 sacks. So those are the 2 that are way ahead. You'll have Keyshawn James Newby of Idaho will be up there. There's going to be a lot of guys that you look at. Adam Bach will probably get some votes. Evan DiMaggio of Furman is a solid player. Bryce Norman, SEMO. But to me, it's Walker and Silver. Let's see how they both finish. And then I think it's between those 2, at least for me right now. Somebody else could flash in the last 4 weeks. But I don't see right now anybody that's better than those 2 from a defensive standpoint and a Buck Buchanan candidate.
Nobody who could come up beyond those 2 even in the last couple of weeks. Anyone?
Sure, they could. but it's going to be, you got to look at where those kind of things are. I haven't looked hard enough at the defensive backs, which I probably should have. I just haven't. So I need to take a look a little bit more at those. Let's see. Interceptions. Yeah. A couple of guys from Mercer with 5 interceptions, but yeah, I'm going to say that those first 2.
Okay. Kyler, any pushback on those ones?
So this is kind of an interesting one because if I'm voting, I'd probably lean towards Jamie because, you're going to value probably those plays a little bit more. But also, when you're looking at this, and I'm glad you kind of pulled this up because I was looking at the award winners in the past, and right, there's only one DB in the last 30 years, right? So you have to have a historic season within your interceptions, probably have to have well over 11 to even be kind of considered. You need to average 1 a game, basically. It's a linebacker and defensive end award. Now, where this award comes into play, because it's pretty dang even, it leans a little favor towards a D end because, sacks, tackles for loss, you end up getting quite a bit. But the linebackers are pretty much all most tackles, total tackles, right? So this is where it kind of like Dante Olson, how many tackles did he have? It was a buttload, right? So this is where it depends on what the voters think. And then you have that Botcher kid who has 40 more total tackles than second place. That's a lot. Now his solo tackles isn't the top dog, but he still had 40, 50 total solo tackles, which isn't bad. But I don't know where the rest of the voters are going to lean, because my philosophy would be leaning more towards Jamie. But if you're just looking at pure numbers without maybe studying or seeing what's the most valuable position, what's important, because maybe you just have that many tackles because the offense is just murdering it down the field, right? So you're just going to get more tackles than everyone else. So that's where it's interesting, because this could be it's not like offensive player. I think defense is a little harder to kind of throw your opinion in. And I don't know where the rest of the voters are going to lean. I think they could see that and go, holy shit, this guy has 60 more total tackles in second place, maybe 70 more total tackles by second place at the end of the season. And that would be pretty hard not to vote for if you don't really know, or you haven't seen the rest of the game, or a lot of the games on defense, or don't know a lot of the defensive names. Unfortunately, with defensive names, most of us don't know tons of names. Where offensive, you learn the names, you learn the players, you get hype around the players, you get a lot of reporting around the players. Defense, unfortunately, you don't really until you're in the NFL level. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it lands. Again, if I'm voting, I'm probably leaning Jamie Williams' way. I'm probably leaning towards UCA, right? I think Walker's a beast. But if I'm maybe the other 30 plus voters outside of Jamie and leaning that way, maybe you're just looking at who has the most tackles. I don't think you're going to get a DB. 5 interceptions just isn't going to do it. Maybe if you end in the year with another couple games with multiple interceptions, maybe you have a shot. But it's going to be a linebacker D-end award, and it's going to be interesting to see what people lean towards.
Yeah, and the only DB, honestly, and I just had to come up with a name, and I was hoping you would stall a little bit more, is Kenny Gallup of Howard. He's the DB that's going to probably flash into a lot of voters because he's kind of locked down, but he also has 43 solo tackles. But at the same time, like you said, that means somebody's probably 8-9 yards down the field by the time he gets to him. But he's making that stop. So as a DB, you see a lot of solo tackles, a little bit more impressive. But if I'm going to look at a tackle stat, it's going to be solo tackles, because those assist tackles, he had a hand in there, so they gave him an assist tackle, official scores and stuff. So I don't put a lot of stock into how that inflates numbers.
The one benefit of total tackles is at least you can say he's always there.
He's around the ball.
So he's a ball hawk. Worst case scenario, I mean, that's probably a defensive leader. If you're always a ball hawk, you're around the ball. Maybe you're not getting there first, but you're making sure he doesn't get the other 3 yards. And that's huge.
If you're going to win the Buck Buchanan Award, you obviously have to be a baller. You got to be hungry on the field, like we're hungry off it.
Taco King, coming to you from bright and sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It's time for a taco bet, and time for you losers to pay up.
My flight buddy to Frisco, Brian Thompson, getting us into the taco bet. This one is going off the wall because we're not going to do our standard over under some of those other fun questions. Guys, if you're not aware, the playoff ranking committee is going to give a current standing of where they would put teams for the playoff seeds right now. It's future projection. It's happening on Wednesday, October 30th. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's 2:30 Eastern. It's on like ESPNU or College Football Live or something. It'll be all over Twitter and Facebook the second it gets posted, and you guys will rip into each other on how it should have actually went. So here we go. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Call this the mock playoff preview special, but the taco bet is simple. Who can match the committee's October 30th pre-playoff rankings the best? We're all going to give our top 5. And then together, we're going to figure out 6, 7, 8. Now, we don't know if they're doing 1 through 16. We don't know if they're doing 1 through 10. I'm sure that'll come out this week. But what I'm going to put up on the screen is just a Word document so we can kind of track this because it'll be fun. And we will go down the line and decide, all right, this is where I would put people right now. Jamie, I've got you up here first. If you guys want me to, really the top 5 are likely to be very similar. I'm going to read these off just so people understand where these top 5 teams are sitting. NDSU with an 8-1 record has 1 FBS loss, undefeated against the FCS, no D2 wins. Their 3 ranked wins are Illinois State, UND, and SDSU with a strength of schedule of 7th. Montana State is 8-0 with an FBS win. They have no D2 wins. Their ranked wins is just Idaho. And their strength of schedule is 50th. SDSU 6-2 with that FBS loss to Oklahoma State. They're 5-1 against the FCS because they have a Division II win. They've beat top 15 in Cardinal Word and just beat South Dakota. Their strength of schedule is 2nd. And the last 2 here I'm going to read off. UC Davis currently 7-1 with an FBS loss, 7-0 against the FCS. No D2 wins. They beat ranked Idaho, and their strength of schedule is 32nd. By the way, these rankings are going to be ranked at the time they played. That's how the committee is going to view it. And South Dakota here, 6-2, 1 FBS loss, a 5-1 FCS record because of the forfeit that happened. The Division II win, they have 1 of them, and the ranked win is Southern Illinois and a strength of schedule of 11. There you go. Those are kind of the top 5 that people are looking at. If you guys have a different one, throw it in there. Jamie, down the line, 1 through 5, you don't have to pick those 5 teams. Who are you going with?
All right. As it stands today, North Dakota State is the number 1 seed. Their resume is the best at the moment with the 3 ranked wins and 7th strength of schedule unbeaten against the FCS. Number 2 is Montana State. 3 is South Dakota State. And this is where it gets interesting. I think the 4 seed by resume right now is UC Davis. I think South Dakota is the 4th best team in the FCS. But UC Davis has a better resume. Looking at the metric I created, by my metric, they're a whole point ahead because South Dakota loses that Portland State game from their schedule. They have an FBS loss. They have a win over a non-D1 team. That's going to hurt them. They're the 5 seed right now. You want me to go with the rest, or are you going to stop there?
Yeah, I think we'll figure out just number, and we don't know, guys, if the committee is going to release like 1 through 16 seeds this year. We're going to figure out together the 6, 7, and 8 just for fun. So, Kyler, any differences here? Just go down the line. Who would you have?
Yeah, I think Jamie has it 100%. NDSU, Montana State, South Dakota State, UC Davis, South Dakota. As of right now, the season ended today, and what we're going to see on Wednesday, I think it's hard to not pick those 5 right now as the top 5.
My thing is strength of schedule. If you're within 20, and that seems like a weird number, I just made it up for years. If you're within 20, I think there's an argument. There's something about 20. Well, UC Davis is 21 away. Their strength of schedule per Massey is 32nd. And South Dakota's is 11th. And it is recency bias because we just saw what they almost did to South Dakota State. It stinks that they had the situation they did with the forfeit, but I think, yeah, I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'd give UC Davis the 4. So we're really boring. All of us think that it's going to go.
We all think South Dakota would smoke UC Davis, right?
Yes,
yeah.
100%. Without a doubt.
Right. Okay, so final 3 top 8 seeds. Okay, you guys can throw in a random one if you want, but I kind of want to make this a little experimental with the 1-loss teams. I'm sure there's Richmonds out there that we want to throw in and other stuff. But listen to this. These are just the 1-loss teams that basically remain in the top 20, okay? Rhode Island is 7-1 with 1 FBS loss. Their rank win came to New Hampshire here last week, and their strength of schedule is 47th. They have no D2 wins. They're 7-0 against the FCS. SEMO, 8-1 with an FBS loss, 8-0 against the FCS. No D2 wins. Their rank wins was Southern Illinois at the time. Strength of schedule, nice, 69th. Tarleton State here at the end. They're 7-1. They have an FBS loss, 7-0 against the FCS. No ranked wins, no D2 wins. Strength of schedule, 42nd. And finally, Mercer, 7-1 with an FBS loss. Division or FCS record is 6-1. No D2 wins. And their ranked wins, Chattanooga, Wofford, and Western Carolina were all ranked at the time they played. But their strength of schedule is 83rd. Boy, between those four, just for fun, let's put those four into 6, 7, 8. And then if you guys want to mention something on the back end, we can. But just for now, you have to choose between Mercer, Tarleton, SEMO, and Rhode Island. Strength of schedule is ranging from 47th to 83rd. Some with no ranked wins, others with 3. What do you value? Kyler, we'll give you number 6 just to make it. Who do you think out of those 4 would you put number 6?
Man, it's going to be kind of weird because out of the teams we're mentioning, this is the only one with a loss. And they have the weakest strength of schedule, but they have ranked wins, and ranked wins is really important. We've seen teams not make the playoffs because they didn't have ranked wins, and we saw other teams that had ranked wins against pretty shitty teams, but at the time they were ranked, right? So I think right now I have to lean towards Mercer, even though they have a loss, because they beat Chattanooga, who you could probably put Chattanooga in this final option. They're murdering everyone, and their only FCS losses to Mercer really early in the season. Then since then, they murdered everyone. So, man, this one's tough. I'm leaning between SEMO and Mercer, so I'm going to put Mercer.
I lean Mercer because of the strength of schedule, 69th and then 83rd. It's not egregious. Southern Illinois is not a good football team. 8-0 versus 7-1. That's 3 ranked wins. Jamie, you have any pushback? I'd put Mercer 6 here if I had to pick those ones.
As Kyler was talking, I'm sitting here looking at all my stuff. I think the value of those 3 ranked wins right now is worth more than the rest of the field. I think I'm going to agree.
Okay, we'll put Mercer at number 6. Remember, we're forcing ourselves to have to take these one-loss teams, guys. I know there's Richmond and other fans screaming right now. Okay, number 7, Jamie. Your remaining teams then are Tarleton, SEMO, and Rhode Island. Who do we got? The team with the strongest strength of schedule right now has no ranked wins, and that's Tarleton.
Yeah, I know. It's right now, it's between Tarleton and Rhode Island, and Rhode Island has that cheap ranked win. I think it's going to be Tarleton right now.
Is that strength of schedule that important to you, even despite the top 20, or I guess the ranked wins at time?
It's the eye test. Those are they're close in strength of schedule. I probably should pick Rhode Island because of the ranked win, but I don't value their ranked win. I really don't.
New Hampshire?
Yeah, I really don't value that ranked win. I guess if you're making me choose between those teams, yeah,
God, it makes me want to push back on you and say Rhode Island, just because you're talking about 5 slots of difference, and one got the ranked win, even though I know it's New Hampshire, but Tarleton has nothing. They don't even have anything.
No, they don't. They really don't. I think because you're not letting me pick somebody else, I'm going to say it's Tarleton.
I'm forcing you.
The right answer is Montana.
JC, Kyler, I want to go with Rhode Island here, so you get to split the difference. It's Rhode Island.
Oh man, no, we suck because I want to go with SEMO.
Oh no way!
SEMO has a ranked win. They also have one more FCS win than the other ones too. So that's where it becomes a little iffy. And shoot, UT Martin's pushing it like they're a ranked team now, right? Where's UT Martin ranked? So the committee may go, of course, yeah, it's ranked at the time you won, but they also will probably factor in who did you beat that's now ranked. I don't think they'll factor in who did you beat that was ranked and now they're not. But I could see it the otother way, where they have a win over a top 25 team now. So now that's potentially 2 ranked wins. They have an extra FCS win. I mean, I would say I'd have to lean SEMO right now over those two. So
that 69 strength of schedule is killing me. Otherwise,
Jamie,
it's easy.
But Mercer was 83.
They've got 3 ranked wins. It's a big difference.
so
Yeah,
I
but the
hope
other ones have 0.
man.
They're going to have 1.5 ranked wins with SEMO and an extra FCS win.
I mean, them and Tarleton, all 3 have 7 wins.
SEMO aren't they 8-1?
got
Or
8.
did Jamie or okay.
I probably haven't updated. They might be 8-1 now.
SEMO's 8-1.
I haven't looked up.
Yep.
Yeah, SEMO's
8-1.
8-1.
Stuff.
I hope fans are looking at this and the ones who scream, "This team got screwed to get in or not." Like it's literally.
Also, the difference is they've scored
can see.
120 more points than all their opponents. So
Yeah,
they've been
between the 3. UT Martin's the best win. Kyler's right. SEMO 7.
All right, Jamie gets the final call. That is how we'll run it when we do the actual mock playoff.
Yeah, go Kyler, go Jamie. Screw
Somebody
you, Matt.
gets the final one. To me, then at the end, I know I test in this. I would take Rhode Island. I know you guys can make the argument for Tarleton, but I get to pick the last one. I'd take Rhode Island there just because they have a ranked win. Let's say it like completely is done. 5 of a difference. One team had a ranked win. If this was the end of the season, that to me is an easy pick. But not saying Rhode Island's the better team, but that's who I would go with.
Since Jamie picked Tarleton, I'm going to back him.
So
I would go with Tarleton there. I would.
Jamie,
but I just like I said, I don't value that New Hampshire win. I really don't. But then again, you look at Tarleton's schedule. Their best win, Southeast Louisiana, Southern Utah. One of those 2. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to fight you that hard, Matt. Rhode Island's fine.
So, Jamie, you said Montana. Since I'm forcing you guys to do SEMO, Rhode Island, Tarleton, and Mercer, you said you throw Montana in that 6, 7, 8. Kyler, anyone who comes up on top of your mind that you would put in lieu of these 4 teams besides Montana? Anybody else?
I don't know, but I mean, you would have to start thinking about at least Chattanooga.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd put them above, but Chattanooga's resume is probably one of the best out there in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, they're 5-3 with a ranked win.
But 2 of those losses were FBS.
2 losses, and they should have beaten Georgia State.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're what 5-1 against the FCS with a ranked win.
With their only loss, Mercer, that we put as a 6.
Yeah. So I mean that's a solid resume. A 12.
And it was a close loss.
Schedule.
Yeah.
Montana, I value their 2 ranked wins. The one thing that I would take the huge pushback is that Weber's loss is bad. So I think right now Montana might be the 7-8 seed, but they might get penalized for that Weber loss is pretty bad. But I think this just highlights how difficult it is. I think the top 5 teams are who they are. I think, like we said, I think we all agree South Dakota's the 4th best team. But right now, today, UC Davis's resume is better. After those 5, there are 8 teams that could go in there. I mean, you just hear us rattling them off. And I think that's the best part of this exercise, the way the questions came in today, how we are highlighting how difficult this is. And it's going to get more difficult because they've got to seed 8 more teams. You can't just say, okay, here's the rest of them. Now they got to figure out how to slot them in. Good luck, committee.
Absolutely. Very well said, Jamie. And we're going to get a ton of hate when we do the mock special. We will be the first people in FCS history, because nobody's going to mock it before us. So we'll be the first people in FCS history to take a full mock swing at 16 seeds, and we will take every.
And you know what? The next week, right before the playoff bracket comes out, we're still going to hit 23 of the 24 teams.
Boom, baby.
Bam.
Just like we did last year. We hit all 8 seeds. We had 2 of them flipped. We hit 23 of the 24 on the morning of the release when we put our final bracket out. So we got an idea.
We got her down. Better than ESPN, hands down. Hey, that taco bet was...
I could fart out a better bracket than ESPN.
My favorite humans on earth. That was a long taco bet. The next segment's quick.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. It's time for this week's quick hit questions.
Oh, on to my favorite segment, the quick hit questions. The Rev, Dustin Helton starts us out. He says he doesn't have a question, but to quote Stuart Scott, hugs and I Googled what his next words were. That's disgusting, Rev. You should be ashamed of yourself. Bad boy. But
What
hug
did
to
he
you
say?
too. Excited to see you in Frisco. If you are an FCS Gold member, we will release what Rev said at the end of the
I
podcast.
think he's
Derek,
not that, Matt. Good gosh.
Derek says,
Tyler, you just read the question, didn't you?
Yeah.
oh, Derek says, Urban Dictionary was not kind to that. Derek says, I hit post and immediately thought of another because this is his second question here. Is it time to stop taking UND seriously until they prove they can beat even just bad teams on the road? Absolutely. 100%. I don't know if we took them super seriously before. We always put them in caution territory that they could show it. No. This team, you want to know what it is? Real quick. Their coach, Bubba, does the same thing all the time. And when you do the same thing all the time and you do not change, it's easy to do what you do all the time, easy in the comfort of your own home. The second you have to step into a stranger's place, you might have to adjust or be kinder, or, you might have to, take your shoes off at the door. You have to make some adjustments, right? It doesn't work very well to go on the road and not make any adjustments. Okay, that's enough of that. Jason says, Alcorn lost to Southern to drop to 3-1 in SWAC play. Braves really a divisional contender, a result of their schedule going into the SU game. What do you think, Jamie Williams, our good old friend coach there?
I think they're a contender. I think that West Division's wide open. I'm not sure anybody's really out of it, even Grambling at 1-3. But yeah, Southern's in the driver's seat right now with that win. So Alcorn's a contender. I don't know how it's going to finish up, but I'd love to see Alcorn just because Coach Fred's awesome.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Okay, here you go, Kyler. Best of luck. Jordan says, if you had to rank the defenses between SDSU, USD, NDSU, Montana State, how would you rank them 1 through 4?
Yeah, I'd actually think I'd go South Dakota State, and then I would go Montana State, South Dakota, and North Dakota State.
That's about, you're pretty close to maybe Montana State flip South Dakota State, but you're about close to the total defensive rankings there, which is exactly where it's at. So I might push back.
North Dakota State is probably better on both sides of the ball than the other ones. And when you're comparing the defenses, just North Dakota State's offense is better than South Dakota and South Dakota State's. So it's going to be harder to contain them.
True. Now, South Dakota and some of these teams have let South Dakota State get past the 25-yard line, something NDSU really didn't do except that one.
East
okay,
Tennessee
never mind.
State.
Just, what? Hey, that's a great team. That's a quality team right there. What seed will the Tarleton UCA winner get, says Dylan Jamie. Jamie, what do you think? Tarleton UCA, that's a huge game. You already mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game at the end of the season, but we're way too far off to say that. I mean, do both teams win out till they get there, or does Tarleton lose to Abilene Christian? It's just too early to tell. If both teams win out, Tarleton gets a top 5 seed. UCA would be 8 or 9 if they both win out.
Fun to say 9. Fun to say 9 for the seeds. Jason Groom says, who's ready for beef to start dropping bracketology in 2024? We are, Jason. Start dropping those bracketologies. You're one of the best at it. We love the travel metrics. You won't have to worry about that as much with the 16 seeds, but your knowledge will be key. So hope to see that stuff come out, Jason. Shout out to the past when you did it here live on our show for us. Tim says, what happened to NC-A&T? Is the CAA the new conglomeration of crap that somehow sneaks 5 teams into the playoffs? Bounce back on that, Kyler. We kind of talked about it. They going to do it?
I mean, they have a shot to. I don't think they end up getting 5 teams. I think they'll probably get 4. But they definitely have a shot to, because it seems like towards the end of the year, all the top teams really are playing each other. And again, I haven't dove into everyone's schedule. I did just a few, for a few minutes, and it seems like most of the top teams are avoiding each other. So I don't know if there is a big matchup. So they have a chance for sure. And what happened to NC-A&T? Oof. Ever since they left the MEAC, man, it's been a little bit rough. I mean, they struggled in the Big South. They struggled in the CAA, and I don't know. I feel bad for them.
Like HBCU culture and what you're playing for, and the MEAC, the SWAC, can
Probably
bring
means more.
means more and can bring in defined interest. And we were probably wrong on this. I mean, we're just like, now you can go play the playoffs and this with recruiting and this and that. Well, if you're just part of the old generic CAA, whatever FCS team, it might not be as exciting as going to play for the Celebration Bowl and all the other items. So maybe that has had its impacts, but who knows? We'll see if they bounce back. Programs traditionally don't stay down for long, so we'll see what happens. They kind of feel like a Georgia Southern to me, if I can sunbelt it for you, Jamie, where it's like, geez, what the heck? This team should
bring them up.
They should be doing really well, you know. Here you go. SFA is 5-3, but what is the mark that Carthrow will have to reach in order to maintain his job, says Jason. All right. Jamie, he stinks or what? No, that was Brian Thompson.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. His decision-making has cost them 2 games.
Dustin Held in the Rev says, hey, sorry for the delay, but here's my response. He messaged me later, said, SFA has to make the playoffs, but they don't. I can also see McBroom giving him 1 more year. These two knew each other at the D2 level, and they believe in each other. So he says, as fans, folks are already calling for his head because of the decisions he's made. SFA should be 7-1, but 2 games with costly decisions have people a little bit upset. So there you go. Okay, 3 good questions to end it here. I really like these. Kyler says, great first name. The FCS National Championship game has been played in several locations over the years, but finally Kyler asks, if all roads didn't lead to Frisco, where would you want the final dance to be? We haven't gotten this question all year. Thank you, Kyler Elliott. Appreciate you. Now, you can't pick Frisco. Where would you want it to be, Kyler?
I have like 5 locations, and I used to always be like, it needs to be somewhere in the middle. The more I'm traveling to Miami, the more there's a couple locations in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area that look amazing. A couple big soccer stadiums that seat like 40, a couple multiple colleges that seat 20 to 30. So it'd be perfect. It'd be good weather. But if you're not going to do it in Miami or Frisco, the other couple I like is, Las Vegas or Arizona, even San Diego. One of those, because it's going to be sunny. It's going to be good weather. And it's a destination to where it'd be fun instead of going to Frisco. Even though Frisco's amazing, everyone should go. But going to a place that's beautiful is a big difference than going to Frisco. So one of those 4 locations.
Okay, I like that. There's a stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. Am I right on that? Is it the one?
We're not going to the Crampton Bowl.
We're not going to the Crampton Bowl? Okay, come on. I like a place with a little more heat. That's just all I'll say. If you got a place
for me, I just want somewhere with good food and no rain.
Yeah, no rain. There
West
you go.
Coast. That's where we got to go.
Won't be too bad.
Not the Northwest, the Southwest.
So,
no rain.
Joshua ends it here for us, guys. 2 great questions. First one, what about the FCS as a whole would you reform? Ooh, it's good. Jamie? FCS.
Yeah, real easy. I would make everybody who votes in the stats poll be transparent with their vote, and I would kick out every voter who sucks.
Why, dang. Oh, yeah. That would help a lot. Kyler Neal, what would you change?
I'd change a couple of conference requirements with not even like just the size, because that's a big one too. But if you're playing D1 ball, you need to have scholarships. Also, if you're playing in the FCS, screw you, Ivy League. You need to participate in the playoffs. That's kind of what I would change. If you're not participating in the playoffs, if you're not adding scholarships, go play club ball somewhere else.
Heck yeah. Purely FCS, easy. Let's get those last 8 teams seeded. So we're 1 through 24 completely. I'm just going to rant real quick about college football in general. I've always said this. Why does the stupid clock stop when you move the first down chains? Because the people running the chains need to catch up, and sometimes it's volunteers. No, it's stupid. Even under 2 minutes, it's stupid. Play like the NFL. Run the dang clock. We just stop it randomly when it's a first down is the stupidest rule of all time. And second, I mean this, 2 feet down or 1, just like NFL. Like, what are we teaching kids? If you're going to go play at the next level, 2 feet down. So that's my rant. Make it just like the pros. I don't know why we have these gimmick rules that just exist. Okay, let's have some fun. Best Halloween costume when you were a kid. Double points if you get a picture of it, says Joshua. I will give Kyler the floor first. And Kyler, I'm pulling up your photo. Joshua, the guys did this. Here it comes. Give me a second. You have the floor.
As a kid, I think I was a Power Ranger like 5 years in a row. And I think I was every single color. I'm not going to lie. I was a White Ranger, Green Ranger. No, but I should have. Definitely the Green Ranger, Red Ranger like 3 times, and then the White Ranger. So, I mean, I love the Power Rangers. when I was like 4 to 7. Loved them. So yeah, I'd probably say the Power Rangers was my favorite go-to kids costume.
Well, hold on here. If you guys are watching on YouTube, I'm about to drop some Kyler in the past. There you go. Look at this stud.
Yeah, baby.
Red, that's you, Red Ranger?
That's me, Red Ranger. Of course, I had to wear a coat because my mom did not let me out the house without a coat because that's how you catch pneumonia and die. That's what she always told me as a kid. So I had to wear a coat, but that's my sister and myself. I think she wore that witch's outfit multiple times. So I got my little candy bucket and I got the mask. Man, I was badass.
Dude, that's so phenomenal. I love that. Power Rangers, man. Throwing it back. Jamie Williams, I'm pulling you up on the screen here. So
yeah, so the thing is, I was He-Man one year. So that's probably 1980. I'm trying to base it off my brother. That's probably 1988.
That's awesome.
Dude.
So yeah, when Kyler was watching Power Rangers, I think it was in high school. I didn't realize I was like 8 years older than him, but this is bullshit. He-Man, look at that nice plastic costume. My brother's an awesome clown. So that's pretty good. No, this is, you know what? This has got to be old later than that because I think that's my female cousin in the background who wasn't born until
this is when Jamie was 17.
And then the other one, my white pasty self was, go ahead. You got that one too, Matt?
The other one's better
right now.
The other one's better.
There you go.
I pity the fool. I pity the fool who doesn't love this costume. If that tells you anything, come on, it's coming up.
Actually, here you go. All right, here you go. Here it comes. I hope you guys are watching on YouTube. This costume is so phenomenal. And
This looks so great.
Boom. Look at that.
Boom. Oh,
Jeez. Look how good
Mr.
that is.
T. This is
Mr.
even. This was earlier. If you look how much younger my brother is, I'm probably like, yeah. This might be like 87.
Is this from the 18?
You're damn right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, Mr. T. I couldn't find the one where my brother was the California Raisin because that was even better.
That's awesome.
RIP, little bro. But yeah, we had some cool plastic costumes back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So Josh loved the question. I got to go back, and Matt loves Halloween. So he's probably just gonna have a bunch of costumes from like now, but I hope he's got something from like the 90s.
That's it. Legit this. I'm not I think there might be one out there. I was raised by like the parents who thought Harry Potter was evil. You know what I mean? Like those parents, right? Like we're going to Bible Night Skateland. Like that's who I was raised by. Don't worry, I got off the farm a bit. I enjoyed my time. I'm a little moderate despite some influences. So I was like a jogger. Like I would wear normal clothes. My parents like, just tell people you're a jogger. Tell them you're a track star. So my time in Halloween as a kid was so boring. And it's half the reason. Maybe it's psychology. I don't know.
Why do you love it so much now?
Yeah, a therapist would tell you, wow, you really got denied Halloween, so now you're a psycho. But yeah, I could flip through a ton of costumes. The best ones Allison and I ever did modernized was I've been playing Clash of Clans for 12 years. The guys all know that. And I dressed up as a bomber and her an archer queen. It was pretty cool. So, but I don't think I have much evidence of the past. So, there you go. All right, guys. Well, we hope your Halloween
Did you put a picture up of what you did?
No,
He
I
doesn't
didn't.
have one.
Where's that?
No,
No,
it would just be a July 23rd, him in sweats.
Yep.
North Dakota cold.
I do have I have a pretty phenomenal Pennywise one that I rock now, so that's pretty fun when the kids come over. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed our FCS Fans Nation podcast this week. This was definitely, I think, probably the most fun one I had. It really is hyping me up for that mock playoff special. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube and make sure that you like on Facebook. Those are going to be the pages we're going to be able to access those live shows. Just really incredible things that are going to be coming down the line. Besides that mock playoff special, we also are going to be live during the selection show. We had over 1,000 viewers join us. Why on earth would you ever think about going through ESPN when you could listen to us and FCS fans talk about the selection show? In fact, ending our show tonight, Steve says, did anyone else notice ESPN On Demand playback of SDSU is missing the whole first drive? I already contacted them and they've acknowledged the error. What will it take for ESPN to take the FCS seriously? They will never take it seriously.
You gotta
Ever.
hire me.
They have to hire us. And you can hire us for free by watching the selection show and the mock playoff special show free here on YouTube in a few weeks. So let's send it out. Kyler, any final thoughts before we hit Halloween and the selection show on Wednesday?
Man, I get this is an FCS podcast, but guys, basketball season starts next week, and I could not be more excited. Jesus Christ, go basketball. I love NCAA basketball when my football team sucks. But hey, also, there was an Idaho Flyer that was at the game that they passed out that said head coach of Eastern Washington, Bo Baldwin. Either is that a leak or the Idaho people stupid? I'm going to probably go with the Idaho people are stupid, but if it's a leak, I'm not mad. So, yeah, there we go. Go basketball.
That's a good way to end it. FCS Fans Nation, have a safe and happy Halloween. We will catch you on the next one. Boom. Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe on YouTube. To listen ad-free and enjoy many other perks, join FCS Gold for only 99 cents a month by using the link in the description below. Make sure to follow FCS Fans Nation on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. If you got one, message it to the thing, Kyler, and I'll load it up for the end
How
of
do
it.
I look up memories from a few days ago?